Hello, welcome to my channel. In this video, I want to talk about two women of the Bible who I believe that us women should want to inspire to be like. The first one being Esther, and the second one being Ruth. If you go through the story of Esther, Esther's original name is Hadassah, and after Vashti got kicked out of the kingdom, the king wanted a new queen. So he made a decree for all the beautiful women of the land who were virgins, and obviously single, to present themselves before him, and whichever gal pleased him the most is the one who becomes queen. Well, Mordecai, the first thing he tells Hadassah is to call herself Esther instead. I have to do more research in the reasoning why he did this, but I speculate that it's because it was a form of protection for Esther. It might have been because maybe the people of Israel weren't highly favored in Susa at that point. I don't know, but I gotta do a little more research. But he had his reasonings for sure, that's for sure. But I just want to point out some things with Esther. First off, she is obedient. Secondly, she does not act combative at all. She doesn't act competitive. She doesn't act masculine. She doesn't act like a man. Mordecai gives her good advice on what she needs to do, and she listens. Now, in the point of the story where the threat from Haman comes, and he's threatening to destroy all the people of Israel, understandably so, Esther was concerned and afraid to go before the king when Mordecai asked her to, because the law was, whoever came to the king unannounced was pretty much unalived, unless the king held out a golden scepter to that person. So understandably so, Esther was concerned about going before the king, especially since the king hasn't called for her for quite some time. But Mordecai says to her that if she did not do this, that God would have found someone else to deliver Israel. But she and her family, the bloodline of her family, her family name would have died with her. Because he told her that just because she was queen, it did not mean she was an exception to the rule of the law of Haman has put down in the land. And he says to her that maybe God made her become queen for such a time as this. Now, I personally don't think that if Mordecai didn't have faith in the Lord to somehow protect Esther, I'm pretty sure if there was another way, Mordecai would have done that instead. If God would have came to Mordecai personally, said to him, I want you to take all of these men of Israel and fight against Susa, and now it's like a war hero, I'm pretty sure he much would have rather done that. If there was another way, Mordecai would have rather have done that than to have asked Esther, Hadassah, to come before the king. But he knew that was pretty much the only way. The only way to save the people of Israel was for Esther to go and plead before Xerxes the king. But again, I believe that Mordecai had to have faith in God to request that of her. Had faith in God to protect her. And God does. Esther then realizes that yes, he did indeed put her in position as queen to save her people. That was her purpose. So she tells Mordecai that she and her maidens are going to fast for 3 days, and he and all the people of Israel that are in the area needs to do the same. She goes before the king unannounced, and Xerxes holds out the golden scepter to her, therefore sparing her life. In other words, God made Xerxes remember his love and compassion for Esther. And the Bible says that Xerxes picked Esther because she was the most beautiful. I personally wonder and speculate that maybe part of the beauty that stood out to Xerxes was maybe it had something to do with her personality. I could be wrong. Maybe it was just her looks alone. But what if there was something about when Xerxes was talking to Esther one-on-one, something about her humbleness, something about, her personality that made her stood out all the more amongst all the other women, and he realized she's different. She is more humble, she's more compassionate, she's more sweet. Maybe he heard about Esther's request on asking the servants to advise her on what she should wear when she came before the king. Maybe he somehow heard about that, which in itself shows that she's an intelligent woman, and that could have very well impressed Xerxes. I don't know. It's just things I wonder about and ponder about. But either way, God worked things out to where she was the one chosen to be queen. And God was using her to save the people. If Esther did not listen to Mordecai, she would have never become queen. If Esther didn't listen to Mordecai, or should say listen to what God was saying through Mordecai, her and her people would have ended up perishing. A lot of women tend to think that we're pretty much irreplaceable. But Mordecai is saying to Esther that if she would have not done what God placed her there to do, God would have found someone else to do it. And he would have. If we don't do our part, if we don't fulfill the Lord's will for us, he will find someone that will. And that applies to both men and women. And also in relationships, yes, us women can be replaced. I don't understand why us women act so shocked when they choose to leave their husbands, when they choose to end the relationship. They act so surprised when their husbands move on to another woman. If you mistreated him, if you left the marriage, if you chose to cheat and commit adultery, why would you expect him to not be with a woman that treated him better than you did? And that could have been the other thing that also stood out between Esther and Vashti, because mind you, Vashti was kicked out as queen because she disrespected the king. Esther's humbleness could have been one of the things that stood out to the king. That may be. But I guarantee you that if Esther acted more like Vashti, if she decided to be disrespectful to the king, or she acted combative to the king, if she came before him, busting through his doors, acting like a masculine feminist woman, Xerxes would not have spared her. At the minimum, he would have had her thrown out as queen and banished her. At the worst, she would have been unalived. But when Esther comes before the king, she acts as how God made her, a feminine woman. She doesn't get argumentative. She doesn't act demanding. She doesn't come to him acting like a spoiled child, stomping her feet, demanding things to go away. She doesn't act like that at all. What she does is she humbly says to him, I've prepared a banquet for you and for Haman. And she throws 2 banquets for them. And she made a promise that she'll tell the king Xerxes that she will tell him what her request truthfully is. And what she did was that she built up Xerxes' curiosity. Because with Xerxes, he had to have known that her just coming in unannounced to him was out of her character, and he knew this. He must have felt or known that for her to do that, for her to risk her life like that, it had to have been over something very important. And throwing a banquet was not the situation here. I think deep down he knew that, but he was trying to be respectful of her. So he patiently waited until she was ready to tell him what was really going on. Again, she did this acting feminine. She did not act masculine. If she acted like a masculine man, again, acting competitive, if she acted like a modern feminist, she would not have accomplished what she did. She would not have gotten Xerxes to listen to her or her request. Things would have gone in the completely opposite direction. But because she chose to listen to the Lord, because she chose to listen to Mordecai, because she chose to be feminine as God made her, God worked a miracle through her in saving herself and her people of Israel from Haman. With Ruth, there is absolutely no speculation to Boaz wanting her because of her personality. Now, with the story of Ruth, she left everything to be with her mother-in-law, even after her first husband had passed away, which was Naomi's son. I believe it was Mahlon. When Naomi was determined to go back to Israel, she tells Ruth and her sister-in-law to pretty much stay where to stay home, which was at the land of Moab where they grew up at. She tells them just to stay here at Moab. Naomi says to them, I can't bear you any more sons. I can't give you any more husbands. You're just better off just staying here and find happiness here, so to speak. But Ruth says to her that where she goes, she will go. Where she stays, she stays. Where her people will be her people. Naomi's people will be her people, and her God will be her God. Basically, Ruth is saying to Naomi, I will become a Jewish woman like you. I'm not leaving your side. I will accept your God as mine. I will accept your people as mine. I am not leaving you. She had already shown herself to be a very loyal person, and loyalty is something that's important to people who have morals. Both men and women who very much care about morals, especially those of us who cares about God and His Word, people who care about people who care about morality, people who care about goodness, people who care about righteousness. Loyalty is a factor that is needed. Loyalty is a factor that's a must. Loyalty is one of the biggest things that we look for, and that includes men. Men wants loyalty in relationships just as much as a lot of women want loyalty as well. And Ruth has already shown herself to be very loyal. And showing her loyalty to Naomi, she shows herself to be a woman that would be very loyal to her husband when she would remarry anyway. Ruth has already shown herself to have qualities of a good wife. Even during when she was married to Naomi's son, Mahlon, before he passed away, and even after. She's shown herself to be wife material, even after her own husband passed away. So when they come to the land of Israel from Moab, Boaz hears about Ruth. He hears about how she left her home, left her family to be with Naomi. And now she's coming here on his land to take care of her mother-in-law. She's working to take care of her mother-in-law. This very much impresses Boaz. And again, Ruth is showing wife qualities here. She's respectful. She's loyal. She's hardworking, working to take care of her mother-in-law. She's obedient. She's already shown herself to be a woman that a man would want to marry. Now, Boaz and her work together on his land throughout some months. And Naomi says to Ruth, Boaz is next of kin to us. Now, back then at that time, if a man passes away, the next of kin was to marry that man's wife to carry on the family name. And Boaz was the second to the next of kin to them. And Naomi was thinking about Ruth's future, and Naomi knew that Boaz was a good man. She knew that Boaz would have been a good husband to Ruth. So she advises Ruth to pretty much propose to Boaz. And Ruth does this. She doesn't question Naomi on this at all. And she does this even though Boaz was older than her. We're not quite sure how much older. But when Ruth proposes to him, he's impressed with her again. And he says, you could have chosen to be with a younger man, but you're proposing to me. In other words, Ruth could have had any man she wanted, because a lot of people knew that Ruth was a respectable, good woman. She could have chosen any guy she wanted, and he was impressed that she chose him. Now, what speaks about how Boaz felt about Ruth due to her loyalty, due to her being humble, due to her being respectful, everything all about her. Boaz was more than ready to marry Ruth. He wanted her. He didn't just do what he did just because he, out of obligation of next of kin, he wanted her. He was ready to marry her. He was ready to claim her as his as soon as possible. There was only one obstacle in the way, and that was the real next of kin. Because there was one man that was closer to them in the lineage than he was. So he goes, finds this other relative, and he asks him, do you want to buy the land from Ruth? At first he says yes. But then Boaz says, but if you do this, you have to marry Ruth. And the other gentleman says, I can't. Pretty much he declines. He doesn't want to. So he gives his rights of next of kin over to Boaz. And most likely Boaz knew that the other man wouldn't have wanted to marry Ruth anyway. So Boaz made sure he did what he had to do to secure Ruth as his wife. He knew she was a catch. He knew she was a good woman. He knew she was, someone that would have been good for him. He was ready to marry her. If you act more like Ruth or more like Esther, it's not going to be difficult for you to find a good man that will wife you up. And the thing is, a lot of men are trying to tell you this. A lot of men in the red pill content are trying to tell you that basically all you got to do is learn to humble yourselves. Quit acting so prideful. Quit acting like masculine men. Quit laying down with anybody and everybody. Because that's the other thing with Ruth. She didn't flirt with a bunch of guys. If Ruth flirted with Boaz and all the workers around him, Boaz would have most likely lost interest in her very quickly, because he wanted a good, godly woman. He didn't want someone that would have most likely ended up leaving him for someone else. If she acted combative, if she argued and caused trouble while working with him, he wouldn't have wanted her either. Because a man wants a woman that's going to help him have peace, not cause issues. If Ruth would have acted disrespectful toward her mother-in-law, if she would have acted like a whiny brat, Boaz would have quickly lost interest. Because again, he wanted a woman that could bring peace, not trouble, not chaos. And Ruth shown herself to have qualities of a wife. She didn't show herself to have qualities of a woman that's just, someone just to play with for a brief minute and toss aside. She's shown herself to have qualities of a woman, someone a man is going to want to keep and keep forever. A woman that a good man is going to want to provide for and build a family with. And the other thing is with Ruth, because she listened, because she was loyal, she fulfilled God's will for her. And what was God's will for her in this situation? It was to marry Boaz. Why? To carry the lineage of Jesus Christ. Boaz and Ruth were great-grandparents of King David. Obed, their son, is the grandfather of King David. And Jesus comes from the family of King David. The Lion of Judah comes from the lineage of David in the tribe of Judah. If Ruth didn't do all she did, she would not have the honor of carrying the lineage of our Savior Jesus in King David. Most likely God would have found another woman who could have performed that. But no, he wanted to do that for Ruth. He wanted to give Ruth that blessing because of her sacrificing her home. Remember that Jesus said that those who leave their homes, who leave their family for his name, they will be tremendously blessed? If I remember correctly, Jesus said they will be given double-fold or more. Basically, God is not going to make them go without. And God did that too for Ruth. When Ruth chose to accept him as her God and leave the idols, leave her all that behind, God gave her more than what she could have ever asked for. He blessed her tremendously, and part of that blessing was Boaz, a good, hard-working, well-respected man. Because of her being humble, because of her acting like a true, good, godly woman, God blessed her with a true, godly man. And the thing is, I don't think that Ruth just decided to marry Boaz just because Naomi asked her to. The only thing that I kind of wonder with her on her end, maybe she had feelings for Boaz too. I don't know. That's the only thing that you can maybe wonder or speculate about as far as Ruth goes. But as far as Boaz, there is no speculation. He wanted her. And he's shown that through his actions. Him doing what he did, it's not like it took him a month or it took him days. He got that all done that day. That very day. That very day after the night that Ruth proposes to him, he got that all done within the next day. He was ready. He was ready to marry her. If you act like a good, godly woman, you will stand out to true, good, godly men. And they will move. they will ask God to help them move heaven and earth to have you. But if you act like a modern feminist, if you act like Satan's mistress, if you act like someone that's going to be flirty with a whole bunch of men, even though you're in a relationship, if you're going to act like one that's going to be combative, if you're going to act like one that's going to be controlling, if you're going to be disrespectful, if you're not going to be considerate of his feelings or whatever, you are going to push good, godly men away. You will repel them, not draw them closer. The only kind of men that you would attract are men who would take advantage of you and use you. Or men that just have absolutely no respect for themselves at all. But you don't want a man that doesn't have respect for himself either. Because if he can't respect himself, then he can't really respect you. Not really. Because a man that truly respects himself and that truly respects you, he will let you know when you are truthfully in the wrong. And he's not being a jerk if he does so. You got to look at it from this perspective. It's a form of protection. He's not doing it to be mean. He's not doing it to hurt your feelings. He's pretty much trying to warn you and help you understand that if you keep going down the destructive path, you're just going to end up hurting yourself and those around you. So no, when you are truthfully in the wrong, he is not telling you that you're wrong to hurt you. He's telling you that you're wrong to help you. And also, that's what God does with us. He doesn't tell us that we're wrong when we're wrong to hurt us. He does it to protect us. Instead of coming on the internet and crying that you haven't found a good man, how about you get yourself out of that modern feminist mindset and start being the good, godly woman that God made you and intends for you to be? Follow Ephesians 5. Follow 1 Peter 3. Follow Titus 2. The only reason why you guys want to act like that, it's so bad to do that, is because it goes against your pride. Sweetheart, your pride is not worth it. And as God's word says, pride comes before destruction and a haughty spirit before a fall. I did not get my husband, and I did not keep my husband by acting prideful. In fact, pride was almost led me to destroy my marriage. If you watched my previous videos, you would have heard me talk about all that. I almost allowed pride to kill my marriage. But God humbled me. And He helped me save my marriage. Pride is not going to help you get a man. And it sure is definitely not going to help you keep a man. It's going to do the opposite. And yes, it would be the same way vice versa. If we're talking about men who act prideful, same thing. They can't hope to find a good woman if they act prideful. Yeah, sure, same thing. Do not be like Jezebel. Be like Ruth. Be like Esther. If you really want to become a wife, if you really want to have a happy family, if you really want to find that person, that man that you're meant to be with for the rest of your days, be an Esther. Be a Ruth. That's how you're going to get there. Follow God's will like they did. Follow God's will like Jesus' mother Mary did. Deborah. Deborah was married too. So is Jael. Be like those godly women who followed the Lord, who obeyed his word, including in being respectful and honorable toward their husbands. Then you shouldn't have hardly any problem finding a good man. And as I already said, a lot of men in the red pill content are telling you this stuff. I mean, not many of them are saying, that they, follow Jesus. But a lot of things I'm putting down here is a lot of things they're saying. They're saying be more humble. Say sorry. Say thank you. Show some compassion. Show some consideration, Be willing to help out, all that. They're basically telling you to be a good, humble woman. That's all they're asking out of you. But yet you act like that you can't understand. It's so simple. I don't know why you guys act like that it's the hardest thing in the world. It isn't. And especially if you say you're a Christian woman, you should have enough faith in God to help you to become the good woman that a good man needs. If you choose to go against that, then that means you don't have faith in God to help you there. And it also means you don't love God enough to do it either. Because it's not just the men that wants you to become a godly woman. God wants you to be a godly woman too. And he'll help you get there. I know, because he did it for me. And once I allowed my pride to be pinned to the cross, it was easy for me. And it really was not that difficult to lay down the pride on Jesus at all. I gave it to Jesus, and it was easy from there. But that's all I got to say on this. May God help us. Shalom.